Okay. So I think this would be your first skills paper for some. This could be uh, a known paper to those who have already sit for knowledge levels 2, because the exam for corporate business law, I'm populating this exam paper from BPP exam kit. So those who are using BPP exam kit, you can also find this paper there. Okay. Why am I bringing up questions first? When it comes to law, we need to understand law is built upon two things. However, how we are looking at an instance. So if I'm being the person who is sitting for the exams, how I try to answer the question is based on the question, I bring my emotional understanding. So I bring my emotional understanding. Okay, I see, okay, this person has hit this person. So then this person needs to pay this person. This is the answer we need to give. No. You can't take decisions in law paper emotionally. You need to take decisions in law paper based on justice. Based on what? Justice. When it comes to justice, it based on the evidences you provide. So there are two probabilities here. What are the two probabilities? The claimant can win the case, or the defendant can defend himself. So what happens in this situation? If claimant provides enough evidences, means the justice will favor him. If defendant provides enough justice means, or enough evidences means, justice will favor him. Now, sometimes emotionally, the claimant might be correct, or emotionally, the defendant might be correct. So, but in the eyes of law, it's totally different. So that's where we categorize your cases into two. So we have civil acts as well as criminal acts. So if you are falling into a civil crimes, you need to prove how to bring the evidences. So the evidences need some probabilities. Evidences are based on what? Probabilities. Whoever brings more evidence, more conclusive evidence, the case will be favored for them. When it comes to a criminal case, you need to prove beyond the reasonable doubt. You need to prove yourself beyond the reasonable doubt. So now you can't have a mindset when you go to the exam, I'm going to answer emotionally. Oh, there's a lady, I need to favor the lady. No. You have to be clear with your thoughts. The reason why am I saying is, after some analysis on the, I'm drawing this conclusion, most of the students who goes to the exams, technically they are very good at classes. When they have attended my coaching, they are really good. Sometimes even I guess that this person will get through the exams. But unfortunately, they are in the other side of the road. So there were some students, okay, very good. They are very good, very intellectual. They have all sort of plans, but still they have missed to get through this paper because of small error. Okay, it is not something that you are lacking. It's because of something called this emotional and justice differences. We don't understand that. Because don't be hurried to answer your law questions with your emotional perception. Emotional perceptions, forget it. Because if you have that, there will be certain circumstances where you need to investigate a bit more so that you understand things better. Okay. So there are many instances, even you would have come across in your theory classes. Okay, you would have discussed many cases of each and everything. So I don't want to bring up cases here today, but I'm telling you, cases are some examples which gives us references how they have made their judgments for their cases and how things sometimes it would have gone in the right way, sometimes it would have gone in the wrong way. Sometimes it have been appealed to the precedent codes. Okay, fine. So when you should have a sound understanding in terms of law jargons. So when I say law jargons, there is a separate literature for law. Mostly they will use these French terms. So you should be able to draw your understanding. Okay, if you read the sentence, if they are talking about something, for an instance, I'll just ask you a question. They're asking, what do you mean by obita dictum? Okay, so now this is not the word that me and you quite often use it, isn't it? We don't use these terms in our ordinary conversations. So, as a student who is preparing for these exams, I would say you need some vocabulary. Okay. If I were you, I will be practicing some vocabularies. Nothing to be offended. Even still, I'm learning more and more terms. Okay. Every one of us should learn more and more terms. So the first thing is you should know some vocabularies. So why do I say you need vocabulary? Because now there are certain instances you read the entire sentence, but you go to the answer, they are using some other terms you don't understand. So obviously, if you don't know the definition of it, you can't draw the answer. You're going to answer with doubt. That is definite. So you need to have your vocabulary list prepared. That's one step. That's the first thing. But generally, those who have followed my sessions, I make this as a mandatory requirement. But okay, it doesn't mean that you guys are failing to understand this. No, everyone will get through this because you will have your own level of skills to understand certain terms and conditions. So no issues in terms of that. But still, I'm saying that at least from today, mark your vocabularies because this is really, really important to understand the definition. So how I ask my students to prepare for this paper, I ask my students to prepare, okay, when you are practicing questions, okay, when you are practicing questions, make sure you have your vocabulary list, your summaries of each chapter, because I don't want to go back to the theories again and again and again, because it's going to be a disaster for me, but technically it's a burden. Of course, you can go back if you have time, things like that. But still, some of you all will be working, some of you have to will further work another exam. So everything will be in between, or everyone will be busy. Okay, so we need to understand how to organize our studies and how to get through this paper. That is the ultimate goal. So I'm keeping my vocabulary list ready. Now, while I'm doing questions, okay, while I'm doing questions, now some students have the perception, oh, I should look at anything. No, open book. Do the questions open book. First, you try your question, you read the question, you read and try to pick an answer. Okay. So when you're picking an answer, don't try to look for the correct answer. You can be correct, you can be wrong. Doesn't matter. Don't disappoint yourself if you are getting the wrong answer. That's the first thing you need to learn. Because when you try to pick the wrong answer, then you need to analyze, hey, why did I pick this wrong answer? You need to understand why did my mind didn't say this should be the answer. Where I locked myself. Didn't I read the question properly? They have asked me the incorrect statement. What I have chose is the correct statement. Okay. Sometimes that could be the mistake you would have done. So you need to analyze all these mistakes when you are practicing within your study days and in your classrooms and study desk. You can't practice this in the exam. This is the next mistake that you all do. So what you all do, you go to the exam, you sit in front of the window, now only you start practicing things. Okay. Okay, wait, what is it? Now you start to think. When you start to think, you don't know what comes the other way, then you just flag the question and move on. So this can't happen. This can't happen. You need to understand. I need to prepare this. Every paper has its own way of preparation. Trust me. Every paper, it has its own way of preparation. If you are not organized, if you don't prepare that way, the results that you're going to get is at risk. Okay. You can get through, you might not get through. Okay. But when you try something, you need to make sure you follow those instructions. So I will have my vocabulary list in front. I will have my short notes. So when it comes to short notes, what I have observed, the next thing is, now you know the jargons or the theme of law, right? Everything is big, 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 big sentences, points to remember, definitions, things like that. When I say short notes, what people do is main headings. Some people choose to write the headings. Some you just go and put in the point forms. Nothing, you can't get anything out of it. But still, something is there on the paper. Okay. How to prepare the short? That's very important. How I will prepare my short note to get through my exam. My short note needs to be my next reliable source. So you are preparing your manual. Now see, every electronic device will be sent out with a manual, right? Why they are sending out that manual? Because it is properly instructed. This is what you need to do. So if there is a trouble like this is what you need to do. So your short note should be your manual. It is not you're bringing the notes in short. It's about being the manual itself. So when I say being the manual, so you need to understand the decision rules. When I say decision rules, now sometimes there can be certain points to factor, yes. Now, for an example, if I take the rules of consideration. So if I say rules of consideration, there are points. So what are the rules of consideration? So when I say this, it should come into your mind. If it does not come, then the next reference, the reliable source needs to be your manual. What is your manual? Your short. At this point, you should go, okay, these are the rules. Now see, when you have this habit of doing it, what happens when you have this habit of doing, it keeps things in your mind. You don't want to memorize things. Trust me, when you memorize things, you'll obviously forget. You can't go everything by memorizing things. You will be confused and you will forget things. What you need to do to remember things is, you need to try to understand what does it mean, what they're trying to say. It can be new things. Even I can make mistakes in the classes. Commit yourself, make the mistakes in the classes. Okay, everyone should make mistakes. Then we need to investigate, okay, where am I going wrong in this part? This is not what I should have done. So you need to prepare your manual. That is an important facet of this paper. Okay, what I have observed so far, okay, through my experience, I'm telling you. So this is what you need to do next. And also, when it comes to decision, normally, now you know that UK is out of EU. You know what is EU? European Union. So there are 27 countries along with UK. Now UK is gone. There is only 26 countries in EU. So UK is one and only man. Okay. However, now how law is coming into play and what sort of law we are discussing? We are discussing business law. So, however, the human rights is not examinable deeply. That's what you need to understand. They are not going to dig anything. But you need to understand the UK and EU human rights law are still the same. It's still the same. So still you can hear your cases in EU in terms of what? In terms of human rights cases. Okay. So now I'm just showing you a decision. rule. Okay, how you're going to make now, how to bring up a short note on these areas. So, if you want to populate a short note on these areas, the first thing you need to understand the primary rules. The primary rules and regulations are set by the statute. So, who is the statute? The Parliament. The Parliament in UK will set rules and regulations. Okay. So when they are setting the rules and regulation, the next thing is it needs to be compatible. It needs to be compatible with human rights. If it is not compatible, then technically Parliament should set the laws which are compatible to human rights. But you are bringing up a law which is not compatible. So now what is the legal status of this rule which has bought by whom? The things which is bought by the Parliament. So this would be, is it valid or invalid? Now that is the next thing that you need to understand. Still, the Parliament law will prevail. Why? Even though it is not compatible, even though it is incompatible to the situation, still the Parliament law will prevail because that is the ultimate law-making authority. So from there only the laws are giving birth. So whatever they say is prevails. However, this law needs to be changed by the respective minister. So minister has the right to change if these things are not really compatible. You got it? So this human rights needs to be compatible with the statute laws. So now this junction will make you understand only you. You got it? Now I just gave you a few examples. Okay, then you can go on with that. So you draw something similar to this, not same. You can have your own way of decision. Sometimes you bring up case. If it is yes, what you need to do. If it is no, then what you need to do. So this way of keeping a manual is easy to tackle certain questions, to understand certain questions, because some questions are becoming hard when they ask what is not, what is incorrect, because you are studying only the correct way of doing things. You don't study anything if they have asked incorrect way. So that is where you waste your time. That is where you don't understand. That is where your answers are getting wrong. Trust me, this is where you will go. I'm analyzing this throughout the last 4 years. After that, only I understood that where students are getting struggle, where you guys are getting stuck. So you guys are stuck in the middle. So you need to have these preparations. It's very important. Okay. All right. And now these are some, the first thing you need to have your vocabulary list. Next thing you have your manuals. I would say it's your short note to support. Third thing is practice. It's about practice. If you don't practice this, then no point. You can't have a proper session. Okay. You can't go with the exam, where the exam with confident. Okay. So you need to prepare your notes. It's very important. 3 steps. I told you very small 3 steps. If you follow these things, your exam is going to be a piece of cake for you. Okay, fine. Any concerns? Oh, now we have to be a little interactive here also, right? So I want, if you all have better ways of doing things. Now, this is one way of suggesting this. So now we are in a session. It's not me dictating on terms, okay? Don't just blindly follow me. I always say to my students, I'm not only the resource. You need to go through many resources, draw your conclusions. Now I am coming to you. I'm asking, what sort of the ways that you guys are adapting for this exam? What is your way of studying? Now, you can type it, you can unmute and talk to me. Okay, so that we can discuss things. So are you having some sort of plans? It can be anyone. So you can bring out some examples so that every one of us can discuss, so we all can get through over the line. Okay, so that's the ultimate target. So let's get everyone past this line, this border. So now it's your time. I'll give you all 2 minutes. Rewatching the recordings. So rewatching the recordings. Good, good. Okay, first everyone bring out your points, then we'll discuss one by one. Sometimes I have my facing the other side. Don't think that I'm not looking at you. I'm looking at the screen because all my responses are opposite to the side too. Okay, fine. Just everyone bring up your points. Okay, being fluent with the exam kit. Okay, good, nice. I'll write your responses. Okay, so then it will be interesting for us to discuss. Writing a short clip. So one is re-watching. The videos. Second, study hub quizzes practice. Study hub. Third, exam kit. Fourth, practice mocks revisions. Okay. Okay, say mocks and the questions are coming with the others. Good. Study through questions. Okay. So learn through questions. Next, I used to revise recordings, take down important points, and write down short notes, and then I have understood throughout the recording. I've done practice questions instead of Google, so you also bring points. Okay, good, lovely. So, rewatching the videos. Uh, Rewatching the videos can be done if you don't understand or if you were absent to the class. And if that area is really gray, better rewatch those areas again. However, this can't be the resource at all the time. Okay, I'm not saying whatever your method is wrong, but I feel I'm just responding emotionally. Okay, my emotional response. Okay, so you think from a justice point of view. If it is bringing justice to yourself, then fine. Because I need to go to the respective lectures, I'm just wasting more time. I feel that I'm wasting more time. Okay. So the watching the videos again, watching the concepts again, for to that respective area would be okay if it is great for you. But to do a question, you are learning through that, then fine to an extent. But what I'm trying to say is watch the recordings, be in the class once. No, you have already passed. What I'm saying is, to all my students, I used to say, you need to study for the paper in the class. Prepare your short notes here. Start preparing in the classes. When you go home with your short notes, practice your questions. Try to bring more problems. Try to analyze. So once there was a student from India, okay, so she was practicing these methods and she brought me a new uh, law. Actually, in that case, not law, I'm saying that new case, where in the suggested answer, they have not given the final answer to the question. Now, she has researched about this case. Okay, so I just recall that. case. Now, there was a case where you need to decide whether this employee is a self-employed person or is being an employee itself working for someone. So is it contract of services or is it contract for services is the question. So then the detailed analysis was taken. The detailed case was taken. This case was taken to the employment tribunal. So this was held in the employment tribunal, but the employment tribunal has given the judgment as needs to be an employee. However, this has been appealed to the courts of appeal. So the courts of appeal gave a different judgment. I'll just show you that case. It's a nice case. Now see, in your paper, cases are not important, yes, but when it comes to decisions, it's different. It based on evidences. So you know if it's a criminal case, you need to bring more reasonableness to the case. If it's a civil case, you need to bring more evidences to, and whoever have more probability of having evidences will win the case. Fine. So the next thing, it's a study hub. Yes, it is a supportive resource. It's a supportive resource, I would say. Exam kit, fluent in exam kit. Trust me, when I face my exam, I have never finished my exam kit for any of my ACCA exams. Any of my ACCA papers, even it could be in the professional levels, I didn't complete. Trust me. You need to do fair amount of questions. You can't choose, I'll do only 10, I'll do only 15. No. Fair amount of questions as much as you could. Don't necessarily tell that I need to kill the exam. Killing the exam kit doesn't going to give you life. Okay. So why am I saying that is you need to understand when you are approaching, when you're gliding through a question, you need to understand how the question is set up, what the question is trying to ask you. You yourself needs to find, oh, this question is not good. This is not the way to ask. It should have been asked this way. This needs to be the options. So for that, you need to spend time with the question. Now, see, if you want to understand a person, you can't just understand that person by the look, right? So look is just 1% of 99. So you need to speak to that person, build conversations with that person. You need to understand that person. You need to realize, okay, if this is the X situation, how he reacts. If this is the Y situation, how he reacts. You need to understand his emotional level. Okay, then you need to prepare yourself, okay, how to tackle this. You got what I'm trying to say? Same approach. Don't just keep killing the questions. It doesn't going to give you life. Rather, practice questions with quality than quantity is what I would prefer. Okay. Now, when I say this, some students do only 2 questions and wait. No, you need to do fair amount of questions. I hope you are, advanced enough to understand what I'm trying to say. Okay. So make sure not killing is should be your target. It's about gaining more knowledge and more quantity, not quantity, the quality of those questions. So that I would have recommend to that person. Doing mock papers with timing is effective. Yes, you need to do mock papers and you need to time your paper. But technically for law paper, 2 hours is more than enough. To me, it's more than enough. I finished my paper 1 hour and 80 minutes within 1 hour. That was after referring to certain questions again and again. Still, I had more 40 minutes left. But don't finish your exam and come out of your exam. Make sure you use that 40 minutes. Don't do that mistake. Because sometimes certain questions you would have first one, well, when you read for the first time, you can be blind with certain words, but then later you pick up those points. So make sure that 40 minutes of utilize. So an 80 can be a 90, 90 can be a better one. You got it? Learning through the questions is what we are going to do throughout this exam expert session. So that's a good platform what you have done, but let's see how we are going to learn through the questions, how we would have done and how we are going to do it. And bringing points, okay, bringing short notes, I would say it again. It's going to be your manual. So make sure you are preparing your manual, which guides, which helps you when you are in trouble. Fine. So these are the outlook, the setup, the environment that we need to bring in. Fine. All good. So now let me talk about the exam structure. So when it comes to this exam structure, you don't want to type anything, nothing to be typed. You need to choose answers, select answers. Okay. So section A, you got 45 multiple choice questions. You need to answer everything. Section B, they will give you some cases, some scenarios. So based on those cases, they will bring some questions. Okay. Then those questions are compulsory. You need to attend everything. So 100% of your paper you need to answer. You can't leave any questions. So for this first 45, you will score 70%. The next 5, you will score 30%. So in total, you will get 100%. And your pass mark is going to be all your pass ACCA paper is 50% is the pass mark. Your pass mark is going to be 50%. Fine. So this is the basic things that you should be happy to prepare with. Fine. Now, how we are going to get used to this session. So in this session, we got 50 questions. So how I have segregated this session, we answer the first 10 MCQs, and then we move to a case question. Then we come and answer the second set, we move to a case question. So we are parallelly, we are going to cover each and everything. Through that, we are trying to learn things. Okay. Here, this attempt is not to finish the paper within the day. That is not the target. We are trying to attain maximum as possible. We can finish the paper, we are not, but we need to understand each and everything what they are trying to say. Okay. And the next thing, what I wanted to say is, I will give you a small amount of time for you to attend certain questions and have an answer with you. And we are also discussing the questions. So you're going to discuss the questions back with me again, and we are going to choose, okay, why did we choose this answer and what is the learning? Okay, even if you have got a wrong option, I don't care. That's all good. Let's make mistakes together. Sometimes I might make a mistake during answering these questions. So you should have the guts to say, sir, what you did was wrong. So this is what I think. This is how it needs to be. You need to advise. So don't ever think it can be with any lecturers, okay? Don't get afraid to them if they are proving that their answer is correct. If it is still wrong, then talk to them. So they might miss certain points. They can even they are human beings, right? They can also be blind. So why am I saying this fact is you guys are not rational. We have to be rational. You need to think in a proper way. Because when you know the certain set of knowledge, then make sure you practice it. Unless you practice it, if you keep it for yourself, then no use. Fine. Okay, let's start answering. So I'll give you around 3 to 4 minutes to answer, to have an answer for each and every questions which is displayed here. So first try these first 3 MCQs here and have an answer for yours. That you can share your answers to if you have. So for next question, I'll put the timer on. I think you have spent okay 3 minutes. Thank you. So let's start discussing our first question. So this is how we are going to glide through our syllabus and by practicing questions in different angles. So I'm not going to prescribe chapter 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to push everything together and we're going to have a common understanding on all the areas. So towards the next session, if you favor, sir, can you bring some questions on this? So then we are going to customize it. If not, I'm going to bring another paper and then we are going to glide through it. Fine. So the first question, in which of the following courts do all the criminal cases begin? Where it starts? So what is your choice? Where do you take the criminal cases? What are your answers, guys? Is it county in the county court or is it in the crown court in the magistrate? Very good. So you are going to start all your criminal cases. It can be even civil cases from your magistrate court. Which court you need to start up with? From your magistrate court. So in the magistrate court, you deal with both civil cases and criminal cases. Right. Then what happens from here? So if the case is becoming more serious and the magistrates in the magistrate court is not in a position to handle these cases, means if the cases becomes more serious, then county court will handle all the civil cases. So here only civil case. Okay. Then the crown court will handle only criminal cases. Wasn't it? The crown court will handle all the criminal cases, where county court will handle all the civil cases. Good, good choice. Fine. So the next one. Joan holds 100 shares in Box Limited. The directors of Box Limited have announced that she will be granted 1 share for every 5 shares she holds. The shares will be issued and fully paid up. What is this definition? This is your FR definition. It is directly tells you you are giving free shares to your existing shareholders. So if when you provide free shares to the existing shareholders, we call it as bonus issue. That's a simple thing. You call it as what? A bonus issue. Then what is a right issue? A right issue means you are giving free or new shares to your existing shareholders at a discounted price. At a discounted price. So capital issue means that is the share issue itself. There is no something called special issue. Okay. So no need to worry about that. However, if shares are fully paid up at the issue point, then the shares are offered free to the existing shareholders. So we call that as bonus issue. Another name for bonus issue is what? Anyone? So it's capitalization of reserves is also known as bonus issue. Okay, fine. The third one, I asked you to go along with the third one as well. In the context of the sources of the loan, what is a statutory instrument? What do you mean by a statutory instrument? What is that? What needs to be your choice? Elmo, what is your choice? Shafna, Nidushan, Hiba, drop your choices, guys. What is your answer in this case? A tool used by Parliament in process of developing primary legislation. A form of delegated legislation that allows ministerial powers to be exercised. A right granted by the UK human rights legislations to strike out secondary legislation. So technically, a statutory instrument means you are giving powers, you are pushing down authority, you are giving powers and you are pushing down authority for others to work. Now, see, if you take your parliament, if parliament is going to make all the decisions, then all the regulations, it is going to be tough. Okay. So now you need to understand, for instance, there can't be a person who is well versed in finance. So the finance minister himself, if he does not have right powers to exercise himself, his skills, his expertise, and bring up certain guidelines to follow. If it needs to go through the parliament every time, then it is going to kill the process. Okay. So parliament needs to handle professionals separately. So they need to give a minimum amount of authority for them to exercise their professional skills. For an example, if I hire you as an accountant to work with me, then you will bring in some skills, knowledge, and expertise from ACCA. So you come here, I say, I don't want your ACCA. I don't want your accounting knowledge of ACCA. Do whatever I say. So sometimes I buy 50, 60,000 worth of assets and I still write off in my PL. I'm not even following my taxation rules and anything. So I'm asking you need to do the way I'm supposed to. So if you control based on the ways that you think that is correct, then there is no benefit if that expertise in that field would have advised. So I should let you to prepare my accounts. And then with that information you're providing, I need to come out with results saying that, hey, I don't think this is correct. That would be a most wise option. So what I'm trying to say is, when you are handling big systems, you can't handle everything from the center. Okay. You need to give powers to the corners of each and every side. Then only it will be more productive in terms of bringing a law, in terms of quality, and in terms of developing a process. So a statutory instrument means it gives rights, it pushes down authority for others to exercise their powers, to exercise their power. So with that definition, you would have understood that it is a form of delegated legislation allows ministers to exercise their power. You got it? Because if ministers does not have sufficient authority, if you don't have sufficient authority to exercise your power, then they can't bring in laws. They can't work in their field that they are expert. So every time they need to scratch the back of parliament, it's going to be a delay and a disaster to the entire thing. So the main setter himself gives the authority. But I'll tell you something else also. So the other side of it, I bring good suggestions means good for the economy. But if I bring bad suggestions means, can this be overruled by the parliament? Do parliament have the rights to change whatever the misstatements or misrepresentations which is brought by the ministers? So whatever the things that they are bringing in, whatever the powers that is not applicable, can parliament change it? And they change it. Do they have the rights to change it? Tell me. Yes, because you are giving the control, which means you are just giving some thread to your kite. So it will keep on flying. So if it is not staying in one place and it is disturbing the whole area, means you need to pull it back. Got it? You need to get it down. So you can change it. Who can change it? The parliament, the main body can change it. It could be another perspective of the exam questions. Can the decisions made through the statutory instruments be influenced or be changed by the preceding authority? And they can give you some options. They can say the parliament, they can say the judicial committee, they can say the king. Who can change it? So then you need to understand what to choose. This is what examination. When I say examination, this is how you need to examine the question. You need to investigate, you need to live with the question and see, okay, this is what you need to understand. So do I understand this part well? Did I understand what is statutory instrument? So if you don't know the definition of statutory instrument here, then of course this question is going to be a gray area for us. Okay, fine. So now let's move to the next set of our questions. So it's going to be 4 to 6. So I'll give you another 4 minutes to do it. Can you start doing it? I hope you all have your answers with you. So let's discuss. So which of the following is an indication that a person is self-employed rather than an employee? So rather than being an employee, you need to understand whether this employee means what are the factors that is supporting to be an employee and what are the factors that is supporting to call him as a self-employed person. Okay. So here you need to tell which of the following is an indication that a person is self-employed is the term that you need to pick. So the person has the ability, we are learning two things here. The person has the ability to delegate work to others. So if the person has the ability to delegate work to others, it's towards an indication that he is self-employed. I will say this as one and this as two. So if a person is paid as salary, so then it indicates that you are an employed person. You are an employee. The person is told how they should perform their task. You are giving training and everything means still it's an employee. It's a factor which supports to be an employee. The person has their own work tools provided to them. So if you are providing work tools to them means still you are an employee. So you work for a company. You don't take your tools, but you be a self-employed person. You are being a plumber. So you are contracting a service. So then you bring your own resources to it. So the fact which is helping us to determine to be a self-employed person is the first option. So it supports us. Okay, if you have the ability to delegate work to others, that's an indication of being self-employed. The fifth one, which of the following is a condition that must be met in order for a principal to ratify the actions of an agent? Okay. So the first thing, ratification must occur immediately after the contract is formed. Ratification must be agreed with the third party, or the principle must have existed when the contract was formed. So what is the condition that must be made to ratify the actions of an agent? Is the question. What needs to be the answer? To ratify the contract, the actions of the agent, the principle must be existed when the contract is formed. So that is the first condition to ratify. Got it? However, I would also say the ratification must occur immediately. Should it be immediately after the contract is formed? No. It needs to be within a reasonable period. You got it? Ratification must occur within a reasonable period, not immediately when the contract is formed. Okay. Ratification must be agreed with the third party. It does not necessarily needs to be agreed with the third party. However, it needs to be communicated to the third. You got it? So ratification must be communicated to the third party, not what? It is not agreed with the third party. It's not needs to be agreed to the third party. It's not must to be agreed with the third. It needs to be communicated. Okay. So I hope you understood why the other options are not. Fine. Then the next one is easy. What is the minimum notice period for a person who has been employed for 18 months is entitled to? Is 1 week, because if it is between 1 month to 2 years, correct? If it is between 1 month to 2 years, then you need to give 1 week of notice. Need to get 1 week of notice period. So that's an easy part. But let's understand some facts about self-employed, how to distinguish between self-employed and employed. Okay, let me bring some cases. I used to always refer some case studies for students. So let me bring up some case studies for you all as well. If you could watch this webinar, it's good, but still, let me go with this. I hope it won't be audible. Just give me a moment. Oh.
Quite big. But now, as a small business owner.
Can you hear?
When it comes to filling up your tax return, you have to split out your employed and your self-employed work. Now, people then say to me, well, what's the difference between employed and self-employed? Well, for employed, you tend to go to a specific place of work. You do what you're told to do, when you have to do it, you are under direct supervision, and you use the tools and the trade of that business. At the end of the week or the end of the month, if you're lucky, they pay you with a payslip. They deduct PAYE and they deduct national insurance, and potentially they also deduct pension. Self-employment don't have the luxury of getting that. You have to go and find your own work, chase up your contacts. You are normally providing your own equipment, working often on your own terms in your own place of work. Obviously, things like musicians, if you play in an orchestra, you go to where the orchestra is based. But you provide all your own equipment, you do it when you need to do it, and then you have to invoice people and wait for payment. The payment that comes through to you, well, that won't have PAYE and national insurance deducted. That's up to you to do on your tax return. Now, you can be employed and self-employed at the same time, but it's vital you understand that both go on your tax return, as you only get one personal allowance. You need to keep detailed records of your costs. If you have an employed job, you cannot claim things like travel to that employment, or any subsistence needed, any overnight accommodation, because your employer should be paying that. And I always advise people to have 2 separate bank accounts. One bank account will be for your self-employed business, and the other one is what I call your life account, that you would have PAYE income going through, your mortgage or rental payments, your life fund stuff going through. So they are 2 separate things, and they both need to be declared on the tax return. But one thing I need to really press home is, if you are self-employed and you've been going to the same place of work for the same employer for more than 24 months, HMRC won't consider that as self-employed. they will consider that as hidden employment. So you will not be able to claim any travel costs or any subsidiary costs to get to that place of work. There's more on that on another video. So if you look for temporary versus permanent place of work, that'll tell you a bit more about that. Thank you. Employed work.
So what we want to learn in some discussion for that? It's more often than it's a wonderful classification for tax students, I would say. But tax laws and the business laws goes together. Okay, when you come to the tax paper, you'll understand certain facets of it. If you have already done your tax paper, you would have understood it completely. But did you observe a point where she was mentioning us, if you are working in a company for more than 2 years as a self-employed person, the HMRC, which means the tax authority, is not going to recognize you as a self-employed person. But it is not necessary for our law paper, but still, it's a good valid point to understand. It's some sort of new learnings that we come across. Then, throughout the conversations, she was helping us to understand how to decide if you are a self-employed person and if you are an employed person. So employed person means you go to work, you work 8 to 5, the business will provide you all the luxuries that you want. So a working environment, the facilities, okay. So then at the end of the month, they will give you a salary. So when they are giving you the salary, they themselves deduct your taxes, which is your pay as you earn taxes, as well as they will contribute to your insurance. That is important. So these facts will prove that you are being an employee. Now, this is what you need to search in your answers. Then if you are being a self-employed person, so you need to understand that, okay, you need to bring everything, you need to provide everything, you need to go in search of people and you need to go in search of work. And then you need to manage your own stuff. You need to pay your taxes alone. You need to pay your pensions alone. Okay, you need to accommodate yourself, everything. Did you understand that? So it would be better. Now, normally what I used to do is I used to go some short scripts like this when technology is around you, use it. As I told you, I'm not only the source. See, even I'm bringing supports of some YouTube videos of some other person's opinion. So we need to, now why am I bringing all these strategies? Students need to understand you should not rely on to one thing. Don't do that mistake, please. Some lecturers don't like that. They are like the one way, same way, that's the only way. I don't like that approach. We have to give freedom to students to navigate through things. You need to bring on certain things, go certain facts, review certain facts. Now, there is something, now you are in the skills level, I'll tell you something else also. So when you are into the skills level, there is something called examiner articles. How many of you will go through those exams? It's very important. I would say it's a crucial, another source of studying because you read the examiner's mind there. It's really important to read examiner's mind. So then you know how to tackle the exam, what he's expecting from the questions. Okay, so it's really crucial. However, okay, so I got a message. So would a self-employed person be considered an employee if they work for the same employer for more than 24 months? Of course, they can be recalled as an employee under taxation laws. So taxation law is telling you, but the business law is going to differentiate and delegate and say that still you are classified as a self-employed person. Okay, so if the question is bringing you a point, could this be? They will say it is. They can come and say an employee could be referred. Sorry, and a self-employed employee if he's working long. So when they say long, they need to specify how long, and then they can also ask you a question. What sort of a classification this person, they can bring out a person's name and say he would have been classified as an employee, as a trainee, as a person, I mean, employee of the organization. It can be an apprentice, a trainer, it can be a mentor, and then they give you the other option too. So then at that point, if you have the options to choose, then you can be confident along with the taxation. Then that will, you can still be biased towards your answer because they are saying it might be called in terms of business law. You are going to stress that point as self-employed, not the self-employed option you need to choose. You need to choose the option of employee. So they need to bring this scenario here. Now, this is something additional learning for us. Okay, but in your context of your subject boundaries, they will not go to that extent because they are not leveling up your skills up to that. You need to understand to differentiate who is an employee and a self-employed person. Okay, fine, good. Shall we try 7 and 8? I'll give you 2 minutes. Let's discuss. In the event of an unlimited liability partnership is being terminated, which of the following liabilities are repaid once all the external debts have been settled? So your business is going to be liquidated. So you are settling all the external debtors. So all the external debtors are settled. So then you have a sequential order. How will you prefer? Sorry, guys. Do you have a sequential order what you need to choose? So when you are having that preferential order, you have the ranks to whom you need to pay first. So you need to pay your secured creditors first, isn't it? Then your unsecured creditors. Then you have the ladder which is moving along. And finally, you pay your ordinary shareholders. Okay, fine. Coming back. Now, this is a partnership. So what needs to be settled right after the external debts have been settled? The partners' loan advances, partners' capital contributions, or partners' share of profit. So you need to make sure to settle your partners' loans that they have given, because that is also a debt which needs to be focused before you are distributing your capital and your profits available. You got it? Because that is the next ideal thing that you need to settle your partners, because that is not the capital contribution. They also have provided the loan to the business as someone else would have done in that occasion. Right. The next thing, a declaration of solvency is required to commence which of the following? A declaration of solvency. Solvency means what? Are you in a position to continue your business or not? Are you solvent enough? A declaration of solvency is necessary when members decide that they are going to shut down their business. It's not about creditors. It's not a compulsory, it's not an administration process. When members of the company, the shareholders of the company, they decide to shut down, they need to prove to the courts that their business is in the solvency of their business is tested. Okay, so they need to prove we are not solvent enough to carry out the operations. That is the reason why we are deciding to shut down or liquidate our business. So that declaration of solvency needs to be given. Is that clear? For answer 9 and 10. You can see this, but answer only question 9 and 10. Right. Which of the following is a ground disqualification or disqualifying a director? A reason to disqualify a director in accordance to MO or MA, MOA, whatever, model articles of association. So, according to the model articles of association, what is the ground qualification that you need to put a director? You recognize a director is disqualifying. So here the fact needs to be biased to whatever the answer that you are choosing needs to be biased in accordance with model articles. Because there can be grounds that you form your articles of association. So you can have your own terms and conditions, but here it needs to be based on what model article says. So what would be the option? Let's go through the options. Breach of a fiduciary duty, failure to meet statutory duty, breaking the terms of their service contract, becoming bankrupt. Everything will disqualify a director. Okay, so all the options that is available here will disqualify a director. However, in accordance with the model articles, if the business is becoming bankrupt, then your directors are responsible for that. The directors are responsible for that. Becoming bankrupt is one of the main grounds for disqualifying a director in accordance with model articles. All the other disqualifications are the things that you bring into your terms of directors, and you bring your own guidelines into your articles of association. Okay, fine. The next one, which of the following companies qualify for exemption from audit? then who are exempted to be, I mean, you don't want to audit them, who are exempted from audit. So a public company with a turnover of 1 million and a balance sheet total of 2 million, a private company with a turnover of 11 million and a balance sheet total of 6 million, a dormant company. Okay, so what is a dormant companies? What's a dormant company? Okay, good question, Asya. I'll come. Just I saw your message. I'll respond to that question message right after discussing the answer to this question. Okay. So a dormant companies are always exempt from audit. Dormant companies are always exempt from the audit. However, public companies are never exempted from audit. All the public companies needs to be audited, must. So this is not qualifying for exemption. Then private companies whose turnover is more than 10.2 million, whose turnover is more than 10.2 million, and if their balance sheet total is less than 5.1 million, then they are supposed to be audited. Okay. In this occasion, their turnover is higher and their minimum requirement of balance sheet total is also higher. So they are not qualifying to be exempted from auditing their financial statements. So in this occasion, the private company is also getting caught for audit. So their minimum threshold is up until 10.2 million. So if you are turnover means what? Your total sales. If your total income is less than 10.2 million, your company's financial statements does not needs to be audited. Okay, as well as your balance sheet total needs to be less than 5.1 million, then you will be exempted. But in this case, it is above, so you're not exempted. So the company who are exempted in this situation is a dormant company, right? I hope you understood that factor, but there is a question. So when they say becoming bankrupt, do they mean the company being bankrupt or the director is being bankrupt? Not the director. The director is not being bankrupt, the company. You're forming articles not for the director. Model articles is formed to say companies. Model articles is formed to say companies, not the directors. Okay. So I hope you understood that fact. Fine. So we discussed the first step. So let's go to practice a task question. We'll see how a task question is testing us. So the first task question, it can be this, but I'll try to share my screen in splitted version. Just let me know if you guys are in position to see both the screens. Choose this. Something happens there. Give me a moment, guys. So you can view the first requirement of the question in one slide and the second requirement of this task on the other slide. So I'll be focusing this. So in the slide here, try to focus this parts below. So here, I hope you can read the question. I have sent you the question as well. Can you all see this in the slide or the screen that I have shared? I have tried to share both, so make sure. Okay, let's do this way. I'll give you a timing too. So now the time is around 8:05. So by 8, I'll give you 10 minutes to do this question. Okay, so within 10 minutes, we are going to discuss. So by 8:15, we are going to discuss this. Right. Start doing it. I'll grab my water. Right. I hope you guys have your opinion on this question and you would have made good grounds of understanding. So let's discuss this with me. Let's see how do I analyze this question. Correct me if I'm wrong, okay? I may be wrong with my suggestions. I may be incorrect in my opinions. So it is always you have the freedom to argue with me. Okay, fine. So let me read this question. Adam, who operates an accountancy practice, charges £1,000 per year for producing business accounts for tax purposes. So he's doing tax accounts, so he's charging annually £1,000. Unfortunately, he has had difficulty in recovering his fees from two clients. So from two clients, he could not recover his fees. Okay. So Bob, a car mechanic, is the first person, told Adam that he could only raise cash to pay half of the fee. So he's telling that I can pay only half of your fee, but he would service Adam's car for the coming year. So he's telling that he will service Adam's car for the coming year. Then Adam is reluctantly agreed to this proposal. So one of his client is in struggle. So he's telling that I can afford only this much. So I'm affording only this much. So let's go for this. It's kind of anticipating your situation as well. Okay, I would say. Then there is another client for whom you are providing taxation services. She is a musician and she's telling that could pay only half again. She's also going to pay half of the money she owed him as she needs the rest of the finance for a new recording. So once again, Adam is agreed and accept half payment. So Adam is okay to get the half payment. So the recording subsequently becoming a major hit and she's making 100,000 profit from it. So who is making? Don is making 100,000 profit from it. Fine. So Adam himself is now in a financial difficulty. So Adam is also in trouble. Okay. And needs cash to pay his own tax bill. So he needs cash to pay his own tax bill. Fine. So let's understand what sort of a requirement from this case they are asking from us. Okay. Which of the following statements concerning Adam's agreement with Bob is correct? So they are asking the case of Bob. So they are telling that Adam can require Bob to pay his balance in full if the value of the car servicing is less than the accountancy fees owed. For instance, they are telling that if it is 500, which you have already settled out of 1,000. So for the balance, he's telling that I will service your car, but the service cost is going to be, let's assume, I'm assuming, okay? Let's assume it is 300. So technically, Bob is not paying this 1,000. Is the situation. So now they are telling that Adam can require Bob to pay his balance in full value if the car servicing is less than the accountancy fees owed. Okay. So that's the first situation that we are looking for the correct statement. Let's see how to look for the correct statement. Then Adam can require Bob to pay his balance in full because the payment in kind is not valid consideration. Okay, let's see what is this not valid consideration. So he's asking Bob. okay, to pay the balance in full because the consideration is not valid. Then Adam cannot require Bob to pay his balance in full because the payment is a kind consideration. So Adam cannot require his payment in full because his payment is in kind consideration, is the next option. Then they are telling us Adam cannot require Bob to pay his balance in full because he is prevented by the Unfair Terms Act in 1977. Okay. So now to draw a conclusion, first we need to understand the rules of consideration. So here they're technically talking about consideration. So the rules behind consideration. So what is consideration? So how much of money that you need to receive, how much of compensation that you need to receive. So consideration needs to be sufficient, is what law tells. But consideration should not be adequate. If you look this question in the eyes of an emotional perspective, a general man's perspective, your answer can be incorrect. That's why you need to bring justice into answer, as I told you at the beginning. Okay, now you need to understand how this instance would be dealt. So the ultimate fine or ultimate consideration needs to be not the whole amount. So law is telling you if someone is in suffer, okay, the innocent party, the ability to claim the money from the other party, the affected party, can't does not necessarily needs to be adequate. It needs to be sufficient. So here, in this instance, if you look from that perspective, you need to understand, okay, the situation of Bob. So Bob is telling, I don't have enough money to cover your accountancy fees. Yes, I know that I owe you 1,000. I can pay you 50% of it, half of it. So I'm giving you 500 pounds. Also, for the balance, I'm going to service your account. Now, if you think from financial perspective, it would not be sufficient, or I would say it would not be adequate because you need to receive 1,000 pounds for the service you deliver. But the law is telling you a consideration is becoming valid when it is sufficient. It does not necessarily needs to be adequate, but there is an exceptional situations. We'll discuss those exceptional situations along with the other cases. Okay. But in this situation, you need to look for this point. And then the second point, is it a valid consideration? Is it a kind consideration? Is payment is in kind, is valid or invalid? This mode of expecting or receiving the fund, is it valid or invalid? It is a valid consideration because everyone is in an economic loss. Okay, so now in this situation, the ideal answer is the third option. Adam cannot require Bob to pay his balance in full because the payment in kind is a valid consideration. The payment in kind is a valid consideration. So Adam is agreed, or Bob is agreeing to service his car is a payment in kind. Let's see. So payment in kind means, so he is telling that, okay, I could not even now. It needs to be justice to both the parties, right? I'm using the word justice now. Now, see, I didn't emotionally getting into the answer. I'm bringing justice. So to bring more fairness to the situation, Bob is saying, okay, I'll service your car. So it is a payment being valid in a kind way. Okay. Then who Adam can't expect to receive more than this. So if you are expecting to receive more than this from the eyes of law, so from the points of law, it is not possible because that is where the rule comes in between and intervene you and says, hey, your consideration needs to be sufficient, not adequate. Okay, fine. Then the next part. Now we are going to talk from the eyes of Don. Okay, what and how Don's situation is. The doctrine of promissory estoppel does not apply. Now, to answer this, I told you, you need to have your vocabulary. If you know this, then you know. Then you need to understand what is promissory estoppel. So they are telling that the doctrine of promissory estoppel does not apply. Who can give me? Okay, so that is a good question. It says payment in kind means, is it exchange of services instead of cash? Likely to. The payment needs to be accepted. A better way of giving the other consideration. Okay. Not necessarily this services. Okay, fine. So who can give me a definition of what you mean by promissory estoppel means? What does it mean? Good. Going back to a promise. So very good. Promissory estoppel does not apply here. So in Don's case, can or is Adam, can he go back to his promise or is it not applies to this case? He can, that it does apply. It is not. They are telling in this case the doctrine of promissory estoppel is not applying, is a false statement. Then they are telling that Adam can recover the part payment if he did not accept it voluntarily. So if Adam did not accept this consideration, can he or can he recover the part payment? Is the question. Yes, he can recover the part payment if he did not accept it. Then, can Adam recover the part payment if Don took advantage of him financially? If Don is taking, Adam to rounds means yes, still he can recover. Adam can recover the cash, the part payment from Don. Okay. The next fact, Don may be required to pay. They're using the word maybe. In these two sentences, they said yes, because he could or he can. So Don may be required to pay Adam in full because of the success of her recording. So what do you think? Should Don may be required to pay? Now, Dawn may be required to pay because she is holding the amount of money that is needs to be paid to. Sorry, yes, that needs to be paid to Adam. She's deferring this cash in order to invest in her music recordings. Now it becomes a successful as a result of holding these things. So if she becomes success, then she also requires to look after Adam because as a result of that, Adam is also struggling. Now, Adam is also struggling to pay his own tax bill. So now, when this is being a correct, valid in terms of consideration, yes, consideration does not need to be adequate. But in this situation, it will be exceptional because you are letting your consideration as a result of the party is being affected. But if the relevant party, the part payments, when it comes to the part payment rules, the part payment needs to be settled. Okay, the part payments needs to be settled in full, and there are some exceptional cases where you don't want to consider the part payments needs to be settled. For instance, if Don is telling that, okay, I'm not in a position to pay you, but one of my debtor is there, he will pay you. So that debtor is paying you around 800 pounds. So now you can't go back and ask 200 pounds from Don, because the part payments covers the full payment. That is the law. From the eyes of law, that is how it is judged. Because I'm trying to assist myself through someone to pay your debts means I'm already in trouble. So okay, that's the reason why I could not intervene and pay. But now this is not the situation for you. In this case, Dom is becoming financially sound. So which means you have the ability to recover your debts. When it comes to debts, debts needs to be paid full, not partly. So how part payment will be considered or falling into the eyes of consideration. So when I say consideration, the consideration needs to be sufficient, not adequate. That does not apply to this situation. I told you there are some exceptional situations. One of these exceptional situations is this. So in this case, it needs to be true. Fine. So guys, so for the section B questions, for questions having 4 marks to all the 5 who have to be correct. Section B, not all 4 needs to be correct, but section 1, you need to choose all the answers to be correct, necessary. Okay, fine. So I have sent you the paper to your group. Make sure you are completing the rest of the questions, because I'm going to continue with the other questions of this part. So do the questions or practice the questions. First 10, now you need to start from question number 1 to 20. Do first 10 MCQs and keep your answers, then attend a task question. Then go and finish it off. So when I start up with the next session, okay? So I'll meet you in the next session, and I'll put another extra session in between. It might be next week or the following week, okay? So I'll keep you posted on that, how it's going to be worked. Okay, guys, I'll have given you the essence of where you need to start, what needs to be done. So I have created you some, and I have laid some foundation on how you need to approach to this paper. So once you give your approach in this way, give your time, you need to now say it's not about practicing number of questions, it's about experiencing yourself through some questions and understanding the quantity and the quality of those questions. Okay, fine. Thank you for your participations and bearing with me throughout this session. So I'll meet you all in the next session with the rest of the parts. And meanwhile, in the group, if you have the concerns that I need to be polished in certain areas, just drop down those things. I maybe bring in the third session with you. Okay. So not maybe I'll bring some questions related to that. I'll suggest some cases through that. We'll go through some recordings and understand the grip of and the essence of law in that way. Okay. So yet again, I'm saying don't judge the questions in law paper with your emotional intelligence. Judge from the justice perspective how fairness can be included into this case from both the parties. Now, a simple instant is this consideration. In terms of Downs, it was different. In the case of Bobs, it was different. So you need to understand the situation and how you are going to exert this justice to the situations. Okay, fine. So thank you very much. I'll see you all next week then. Bye.